Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Strength for Your Purpose podcast here on episode 101. That's right. We hit the 100 episode milestone just last week. So hope you all got a chance to listen to that. If you're a first time listener to the podcast and you want to learn a little bit more about how the podcast gets started and what it's been like here over the past 100 episodes, go give last week's episode a listen because I really kind of dove in on the origins of everything and the path it's taken and everything. But true to that path and bringing you another fantastic interview here tonight. I am really excited about this one. This is someone I met very, very recently, and we have quite a lot in common with how we like to provide care to the people that we are passionate about caring for. And I'm really excited to talk about that, but also want to talk to all of you about the amazing things that this individual offers outside of the beneficial model of her practice and the way she takes care of her patients. So without further ado, let's get into it here. I am joined today by Dr. Michele Kurlanski, who is a podiatrist and owner of Lighthouse Foot and Ankle for the last 18 years. She graduated from Temple University podiatric medicine in Philadelphia and did a 3-year surgical residency at Cooper Hospital in Camden, New Jersey. She's a board certified podiatric primary care and foot surgery, and transitioned her practice to a direct care model in October of 2021. The office offers services not found in traditional insurance-based practices like shockwave therapy, laser therapy, microwave therapy for warts, and one of my favorites was the house custom molded or orthotics. So Dr. Kurlanski, thank you so much for joining me here on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Of course, my pleasure. So before we get into all the exciting things that you offer and kind of talk about how you help people, talk to me a little bit about how you got started in medicine. What brought you to the specialty that you chose, and what was it about, I guess, getting involved in medicine that brought you there in the first place?
Yeah, sure. So I graduated a bit ago from college, and the job market back then was really not so great. And I knew I wanted to do something after school. And I'd worked in a lab, in a biochemistry lab for a bit. And I'm like, oh, this isn't for me. There was no windows, no patient interaction, people interaction. And it was kind of boring.
Mm.
So after school, like as in senior year in college, I started researching schools and stumbled on podiatry and went and interviewed with a podiatrist in Rochester, New York. And I actually did a couple, and this one doctor had his own business, and he just looked so proud and happy of to have this business and to be able to help people. So
Mm.
it kind of like I didn't realize at the time, but that was the thing. Like he seemed happy. And
Mm.
the other doctors that I interviewed, like the DOs and the MDs, they're like, meh, like who wants a job that's like meh, like so he
Yeah.
really kind of sold me on it, and I learned more about it, and then it really, really piqued my interest.
Mm. It's really interesting you mentioned that. I just had a flashback to one of the most impactful moments of my sort of shadowing before I decided which area of the medical field I wanted to go into coming out of high school, actually kind of setting myself up for my undergrad. And the moment I had my kind of aha moment with was in a private practice clinic, kind of like a 1 or 2 person show,
Mhm.
and yeah, that's very interesting, and not surprising that a business owner, someone with a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, would be sparked uh, by something like that. Someone actually being happy and fulfilled with what they're doing, because that's what we all want to do in life, right?
Right.
Especially when you put as much time into going into medicine.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that's fantastic. So, uh, as you're going through that process, and you get a little bit of further education, some of your certifications that we just talked about. Um, Talk to me a little bit about the journey of, were there um certain things that was it a slow transition over time that got you to the point where you started sort of changing your practice model and the way that you help people, or was that more just recent? Or was the stuff that happened that, some of the changes we've all seen in healthcare recently, did that kind of become the straw that broke the camel's back, I guess?
Um, well, I mean, there's the journey and then there's the end point. So like I get to speak like the journey I took was a little different than like maybe my male counterparts because like I have
Mm.
children. So like I went and did a 1 year residency. And at first I actually didn't want to do surgery because where I was practicing in Pennsylvania and living, the malpractice insurance was so much more expensive to
Mm.
have if you wanted to do surgery. And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna pay all this money for malpractice insurance to do surgery. And I was like, meh, so I did a 1 year residency and then got a job and I was like, okay, I can do this. And I was in a group private practice.
Mm.
But then it didn't, and then I had children and it wasn't quite a fit. And so then I went back into residency and picked up the surgical part. So I was able to kind of walk back into a residency. Um, and then I moved to Maine. And so, but like during this whole process, like I've done like, I was with a practice. I'd gone out on my own. I didn't actually have an office. I was very much like you. I was just traveling and
Mm.
not office based. And then I got an office and then I did house calls. I did I did pretty much a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Um, Residential care places, nursing homes. And then finally got to the office and then finally just settled down into the office and
Mm.
just stopped traveling and just said like to myself, if people can come to me, right, me then rather than me traveling around. But by being like office based, I was able to get some more services that I wouldn't necessarily be able to offer if I were traveling. So it's
Mm.
just kind of this evolution of things, and I don't I I don't know. People tell me, my patient's been telling me recently how much I like to try new things. So that's part. It's a blessing and a curse because I'm always trying new things. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I'm always trying new things. So
For sure.
yeah,
It's very easy to especially when those types of experiences have ended well
yeah,
for you. It's very easy to explore that, but yeah, sometimes it can get you away from the bread and butter, so to speak, and the level of care that you want to provide. So yeah, that's really interesting. It sounds like what you've really done is taken bits and pieces of all the different facets of your career and molded it together in kind of a very unique style of delivery of care, kind of the best of all the worlds, right? You've been able to piecemeal the things you've liked the most about all of your experiences, personally, professionally, in your career to put together a incredibly well-rounded uh, setting and care delivery system to your patients.
yeah. No, I have been able like to kind of like take what you like and leave the rest. So whatever what I've liked and what's like worked, I've stuck with, and then and then the new challenges always come up, and I'm
Mm.
always trying to like I like working the problem. Like if there's one thing, and I tell people like, look, if I can fix you, I can fix 10 other people. So it's not like I'm just fixing just you. If I figure one thing out, it can be exponential.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that's what all of us in healthcare, we're always just gathering data, right? Figuring out what are the most effective ways to tackle these things.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So uh, let's before we get into some of the more like specific services that you offer, because obviously as we saw from your bio, some of those have been strengthened by the model that you currently work in. So
Mhm.
let's kind of talk about that October 2021 switch to a direct care model and what that's done to the care delivery and the value of your services that you're providing to your patients.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, it was going like full steam, before that. And then I had all the employees and two MAs and a office manager and a front desk person and bookkeepers and all the peoples. Um, and then I kind of realized like, why am I doing this? And so I started kind of streamlining things. And then COVID was kind of a gift, really. So I've been wanting to be cash based and it just seemed like the perfect time to do it. And then I was turning 50. So like time's going by, right? So
Mm.
like it's just keeps going. So
Mm.
it's just,
Yeah.
like I'm not getting any younger. And I'm like, I have potentially more time behind me in practice than I do in front of me. And I'm like,
Mm.
like, is this really how I want to be spending my time? And the
Yeah.
quick answer was no.
Mm.
And so like, okay, so let's start with the end in mind. Like, how do I get out of this? Like, how do I get out of this insurance-based model?
Mm.
And and COVID was great because there's times that there was hours that people weren't in the office and I had time to think and then time to call people. So like this isn't something this journey you take on your own. Like,
Right.
you reach out to other folks. So
For
there's
sure.
Dr. Mike Champy, who is a direct care primary care doctor in South Portland. He's been at it for a long time.
Mm.
Um, I called him and I knew he was direct care, and I called him up and I said, how did you do it? And he said, don't do what I did. He's like, don't decide one day that you're going to opt out of everything and just stop. I said, okay. So
Good advice.
it
Yeah.
was good advice, yeah. But I wanted it to be done like I didn't want to like just toe into the thing. I didn't want to be hybrid. I wanted to be all out.
Mm.
So on my 50th birthday, I filled out that 3-page document from Medicare, the affidavit, and that was my birthday gift to myself, was sticking it in the mail and sending it. And it was, like I was expecting somebody to jump out and say, no, don't do it, or or something to happen. But nothing happened, and
Yeah.
it went in the mailbox. And then not too long later, I got the letter back saying that as of October 1st, you're out of Medicare. And that was like that was the big one. And then everyone else was kind of like, just you start dropping one and then it gets easier and easier to drop the rest.
Yeah.
And if you're half in, like even if you take one or two insurances, you still have to have a biller. You still have to, send claims. You still have to collect the copays. You still have to collect, the patient balances. So I hear these advocates for these hybrid models, and I'm like, no, you're not being disruptive enough. You're not. It's
Mm.
like you're either in or you're out. I mean, I hate to have this black and white thinking, but this is one of those areas that I really think that
Mm.
this serves you to have this black and white thinking, is that you're out,
Yeah.
because you don't have to explain it to anybody that like, well, how come you take Anthem but you don't take Medicare? Like, how come you do this and how come you do that? I'm like, I just, I can just say I don't.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And I think it just speaks volumes to, for those out there listening that aren't working in healthcare. I think the big take home and what you just talked about was the burden it lifted off you as a provider,
Oh, it's huge.
not having to put up with all those things. And
Huge.
I think that's what people don't realize is the burnout that those of us in healthcare get is not what we give of ourselves to the people we help. It's putting up with all the other crap that comes with that. And when I don't know how many times I told people that I worked with who would ask me like, oh, do you like what you do? And I would say I like about 80% of it. And the 20% I don't like 100% has to do with your insurance.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
The only parts I didn't like was that. So that's where the burnout comes from. All the things that prevent us from doing what we know we can do for people at the highest level possible. It's not what we give to people. That probably factors into a degree as well, but the burnout happening quicker comes from the system that we operate in, or that
Mm.
most people in healthcare operate in, not from actually helping our patients and clients.
Yeah, and I think the system is like designed to fail. I mean, I think
Mhm.
it's one of those things that like,
Yeah.
every year, because it's like, they're looking at profits, that how are they going to get more profits out of us? And you have to see more people, and it just gets to a point where you physically can't.
Yeah.
You're tired and you're doing work at home. Like you know, um, how many hours I spent doing documentation or notes at home. And that was a big one, like trying to get around that. And they're like, oh, you just need to do this and this and this. And I'm like, I've been doing all the things. Like, it's still hard.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's hard. And I think, doctors in general, healthcare professionals are perfectionists. So that, they're trying really hard to do their best and do it to like the utmost of their ability.
Mm.
And it's just, I feel like the system's really designed to fail. Like, we're designed, it's not designed for us to win or the patients to win. Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, and that's the other aspect of this is you just spoke beautifully to kind of how freeing it was to make that switch in your practice, but kind of the proof's in the pudding. People like yourself, the other direct primary care, the PCPs who are using a direct care model. I've seen this in my field as well as a PT. The the value of the care, and I've personally seen the results of the care get
Mm.
way better for the clients and patients that we treat. So talk a little bit about what you've seen in that regard in your practice since you've made that switch over the last year plus.
It's so freeing to be direct care in the sense that like I can do, if the patient is willing, I will offer all of the things. So like, I'll present it in a way like, we both like agree on what to do. Like I always give the patient the options, here's the options, and I can do this, I can do as little or as much as you want.
Yeah.
But I have the time to talk about it. And
Mm,
then sometimes like I have like little things biomechanically I can add to a shoe, or I can tell people to go get shoes. um it's just freeing them that I have this time to like really use my brain and be creative. Like I feel like you lose this creativity in this insurance based model. Like you only have 20 minutes and you're under the gun and you're thinking about the next three people that are in the waiting room.
yeah.
Like my waiting room is like obsolete. Like it's huge and it's totally obsolete. Like I don't even need it.
Yeah.
But the other day I had someone come in. I said, you need new shoes. I wanted, this is what's going on. I gave him an injection. I said, you need new shoes. He went to the shoe store across the way, bought new shoes, and then came back, got some inserts for me, and I was able to modify the inserts in the same day. Like I did so much for him in like one day, and
Mm,
he already felt better. And like, there's no way I could have done that in insurance-based model because I would have had like three or four patients in the waiting room.
mm.
And then I'd been like, I can't help you right now. Like it would have
Yeah.
just been overwhelming.
Yeah. I would challenge anyone out there to name one medical provider that they've ever worked with where they were like, oh, you need me to do this thing? All right, I'm going to go do it and come back right now. And that provider be okay. And not, they might have been okay with it, but they never would have been able to do it. I've,
Right.
I've never heard of that before. And the other word that just rang in my ears as you started your answer to that question, one of the first things you said was just time. That word
Yes.
time,
Yeah.
because the burnout part that we talked about for providers really ultimately boils down to time. It's not just the paperwork. Or the hoops we jump through. It's the time piece for sure. And that's also the piece that I've personally found. I just said this to someone today talking about this direct care model. When I switched over to it myself, I didn't change the way that I approached treatment for certain conditions I was seeing with people, but they were getting better faster. We
Mm.
were we were seeing results a week and a half faster than I had previously. And it was that apparent to me. I went, whoa. I've
That's
I've
awesome.
I've seen this for the last 5 years. I've worked on this same thing every day for the last 5 years, and this person is better like 3 visits sooner.
That's
And
amazing.
it's the time though. It's the fact that you were able to take uh, as much time as you need to help that person through whatever they're dealing with, following the best practices and when you have the time, you're actually able to do that without cutting corners out or without thinking like, oh, what's this person's insurance? I'm not sure they're even going to pay for
Oh,
the
right.
part. Or if I do this thing, they're not going to pay me much, but if I do this thing, they'll pay me a little more, and the results should be about this. You can almost talk yourself into anything at that point. So um that's huge.
And then I think patients don't realize, like, we don't, I used to be, I'm not, I'm trying to think how to word this. Like when people come in and pay out of pocket,
Mm.
they're just paying out of pocket. When they come in with insurance, I'm not insurance blind. Like I already know what they have for insurance. So I hate to say this, but I was treating people differently because
Oh,
of their insurance. And
100%.
I don't have that bias now. Like because I have this, like, it is what it is. It's like when you go to the store and you buy bread, it's like for anyone who buys a loaf of bread, it's the same price. Like
Right.
so I don't have this like bias anymore. Like this is what it costs. This is what my treatment options are. I'm willing to work with you like on as far as like these are the things that I could work for you. These are things that may work better, but I think we could work, with maybe something that's not less expensive. But I always offer these options. And if that doesn't work, then we have plan B. But
Right.
it's not this like, okay, this person has Medicare and I can't do this or da, da, da,
Right.
it's yeah, I really didn't like that about myself, having this bias about what I could offer or not offer or how to treat a patient based on someone's insurance.
Right. And I found through my career that whether you were obviously it affects the business owner because you were running the business in an insurance-based model prior to October of 2021. So you had a lot more information on how X insurance pays or
Yeah.
doesn't pay for certain things. But as someone who worked for companies who were looking at those numbers and not being always as aware, and you're just being told from the top down, like this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do, and you know that conversation is solely coming from profits, it just makes you feel kind of like, ugh.
Ew.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like my boss is telling me I shouldn't do this thing, even though I think it'll work for this person, simply because they're not going to make as much money off my visits if I do that thing. And
It feels yucky.
it just got, it does, it feels yucky, it feels gross. That's not why we got into healthcare. So, um, no, that's a great point. That's a great point too. So, now that we know that boost in value that you are getting professionally, but even more importantly, your patients are getting when they get care from you in this model, talk to us a little bit about some of those other services that you're able to provide that you're seeing really good results with for some pretty common things that tend to come into your office that maybe you weren't able to use previously.
Yeah, so like before I even dropped insurance, I like offered laser therapy, and it's just a nice way, like gentle way of kind of starting, like and just saying like I have this therapy I think would work really well, and it wasn't like outrageously expensive, but we started seeing some really good results.
Mm,
So that like so then you could say like, look, I have this thing, and then well, people were willing to pay for this thing that's not covered under insurance. I'm like, well, and I just kept adding services. I'm like, okay, so now I have shockwave. This works really well for plantar fasciitis. And then I have Swift microwave therapy for warts, like, and it works really, really well for warts. So I just started adding these cash services that really they're not covered under insurance anyways. So
mm,
then it became like easy to like, and then I got more comfortable with saying this. I'm like, well, I have the service, it's not covered under insurance. Do you want to do it? And so just got very easy to say over and over, and people were like accepting, and then like, okay. And it worked. It all worked really well. And so then it's like the transition got to be easier because I'd already gotten used to offering these services. People were used to the services. And
yeah.
then I was like, okay, this isn't so hard. And so the orthotics, the same day orthotics, like with COVID, like if you take a cast for a custom orthotic and you send it to a lab, we were waiting like, 8 to 10 weeks for a pair of custom orthotics. And I'm just like, that's ridiculous. Like, that's so
Mm,
long to wait. People, because I wrote the prescription. I'm not saying like you're needing them in the future, you're needing them now. So,
right. Right.
so, it was a very long, long way around that I got this system, but I got this system that I can make orthotics in the
Mm,
moment in the office, which is really great
yeah.
because
Awesome.
um, I know in the moment, people you can tell from their expression, that they're gonna work, or they're like, oh, I need to tweak something, or I
Mm,
see them walk down the hall, I'm like, oh, just one more thing I got to add to this. And it's just fun to watch their faces when they put the orthotics on and they have the proper shoes on. It's like having the right car and the right tires on the car, and they just walk up and down the hall and they feel great. And
yeah.
it's just so much fun to be able to do that in an hour or less of time. So I don't know. It's been fun. I mean, we don't see the same volume of patients that like a big practice might see. And it might do like, all kinds of orthotics, but it's just nice to do something really truly custom, like in the moment for these patients, and watching them have relief. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be able to just walk in and walk out with those
But I mean, that's, yeah. Now I
same.
have to wait
Yeah.
weeks to months. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're getting custom orthotics, you're getting them for a reason that, again, like you said, might really not be able to wait 8 to 10 weeks.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So that, no, that's incredible. Well, that's awesome. And No, again, and I applaud you for making this uh upstream swim people like you and I are kind of making. But yeah, there are people out there that value it, and there are people out there that understand that high quality care and valuable care is worth it, and that there's value in that. So yeah, no, I definitely applaud you for that.
No, thank you.
Of course. Yeah. So I got just a couple more questions I want to ask you.
Yeah, for sure.
But before we do that, I want you to let people know how they can learn more about you, learn more about Dr. Kurlanski, and also learn more about Lighthouse Foot and Ankle. Where can they where can they find out more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, we're on social, so we're on Instagram and Facebook. Also my website's pretty, we get a lot of hits on the website. So the website's lighthousefoothandankle.com. And if you want to reach out, there's a link on there to reach out to contact us directly, which is great. A lot of people send messages through the website. And we get back to people pretty quickly. I have a virtual assistant in the Philippines who's amazing and gets people in right away.
Nice.
Yeah, we were able to get somebody in today who called, so like for a laser treatment. So like we have same day appointments, so like if people are like
Mm.
suffering, or there's people that end up like worried about going on vacation because their foot hurts, but I always like feeling like the hero on that one. So
Yeah.
someone says I'm going on vacation in 2 weeks and I don't want to, I don't want my foot to hurt when I'm at Disney. I can help you. So like
Mm.
I have time to do that.
Yeah.
The other thing is like ingrown toenails. Like people are struggling, like
Mm.
kids are getting ingrown toenails and like they have insurance, but like they can't get an appointment with a podiatrist until like 6 or 8 weeks from now. I'm like, what mom wants to walk around with that guilt of your kid's got an ingrown toenail for like 6 8 weeks?
Yeah.
So yeah, we've been getting kids in like same day and taking care of it. So it's been great.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Awesome. And we'll make sure we have all that information in the show notes so that people can easily find that and reach out, learn a little bit more about your practice, and maybe get in the same day if they're like,
Yeah.
what, I'm finally going to take care of this foot issue. So that's great. So my final two questions here, Dr. Kurlanski. The first one is, what is your definition of strength?
Uh, I guess my definition of strength is, I guess, kind of goes along with the resilience.
Mm.
Is being able to kind of, weather things as far as things aren't always going to go great. Things are not always going to go great. And it's not, being an entrepreneur, you think once you own your own business, like things are going to be great. And that's not it. And I think strength is, there's courage and strength, being scared and doing it anyways. That's, the definition to me of courage. So I think there's, strength and courage, resilience. I think that's for me is strength, kind of, weathering this like whole, like the healthcare has changed so much in the last, 20 years that I've been at this.
Mm.
And that's it. I mean, just being resilient and pivoting and just like, and not, I mean, not buckling really, just
Mm.
not buckling,
Yeah.
so that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. No, there's a lot of truth there. A lot of truth there. That's great. Yeah, be an entrepreneur. You'll have all this free time.
Oh.
No, no, not a chance. And then the last question I have for you is, what is your true purpose in life?
My true purpose. Well, my goal is to be happy. So I always kind of like align myself back to being happy. Like it
Mm.
doesn't have to be this big, successful, like $1 million like practice. I'm like, what does anyone really want? I want to be happy. And
Mm.
so that's my true purpose. And like, how can I make other people happy? And if I'm miserable, like in my practice or my home life, I was spilling over to my home life. So I'm like, okay, look, I need to make myself happy. So I love helping other people. I mean, I get real joy out of that. Saw a 100-year-old man today and who just looks like,
Oh, wow.
he's got definitely more days behind him than he's got in front of him. And
Yeah.
he's enjoying every last one of them. And he's so
Mm.
happy. And it was such a buzz to see him like that, just
Mm.
and to have him happy to see me. So I guess my true purpose is just to be, feel like I'm happy and have some purpose in the world to make other people happy and kind of ease their suffering as far as like, so they can go on vacation and they can have like this nice family life and, have these happy memories and that's kind of how I feel about
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's great. Well, again, I applaud you for living out your
it.
true purpose. That's fantastic. Anytime that's part of what we really talk about here on the podcast, and why I like to ask guests those questions, because pretty much every guest I've had on here is whatever they answer on that last question, they're doing that. You know, they're doing that, which is kind of why I ask it. It's a bit of a trick question, but I applaud you for doing that. I really applaud you for what you're doing and how you're helping people. I wish you nothing but the best. And everybody, go check out Lighthouse Foot and Ankle,
Oh,
because
thank
they're
you. I'm so grateful. This is my first like ever podcast interview, and I'm just like so grateful to be on here. So thank you so much.
oh, awesome. You're
Yeah.
very welcome. My absolute pleasure. I love what you're doing, and I hope everyone got some value out of this episode. So listeners out there, if you did get value out of this episode, please be a friend and tell a friend, share it with someone who can find value in it as well. And Dr. Michele Kurlanski, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I do. I truly appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Everyone out there, go make it a great week. We'll see you back here next time on the Strength for Your Purpose podcast.